The call came on a Tuesday morning, right when my brain was trying to pretend it wasn't Tuesday. I was halfway through pouring cereal, standing there in a wrinkled work shirt, staring into the fridge like it had life answers hidden behind the ketchup. My phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. Normally, unknown calls get the same respect I give spam emails. None. But something about the timing, right at 8:07 a.m., like it had a schedule, made me pick up. Hello. Hi. May I speak with Ethan Carter? This is Ethan. Ethan, this is Heather calling from your bank. I'm reaching out about a past due balance on your personal loan. There was a pause where my brain tried to catch up like a Windows laptop from 2009. My what? Your personal loan, she repeated, still polite, still professional, like she hadn't just told me I owned a unicorn. The account is currently 35 days past due. We've attempted to reach you by email and mail. I stood there holding the cereal box like it was a steering wheel. Ma'am, I don't have a personal loan. Heather did that little customer service inhale. Okay, the loan was open last month and funded the same day. Last month, I laughed, but it came out flat. Last month, I was eating ramen and arguing with my thermostat. I didn't open anything. Well, the application lists your name, your social security number, your date of birth, and your current employer. The verification passed. My stomach dropped in a calm, very American way, like, oh, cool, I'm being robbed, but I still have to be at work at 9. Okay, I said, what address is on the account? She read it. It was my address. Phone number? She read it. Not my number. Email? She read it. Not my email. And right then, like a slow-motion replay nobody asked for, the last 6 months of my life lined up and pointed at one person. Madison, before I go any further, because I know how this sounds, let me say this. If you think the worst thing your ex can do is keep your hoodie and post pictures with your dog, stick around. What happened next made me miss the days when my biggest relationship problem was sharing a Netflix password. Heather kept talking. If you believe this account may have been opened without your authorization, you'll need to file an identity theft report. We can freeze the account pending investigation, but we'll need documentation. Yeah, I said, staring at my kitchen floor like it had betrayed me personally. Yeah, okay. Please freeze it. We can place a temporary hold, she corrected, and I'll email you the forms. Email them to what address? She read the wrong email again. Yeah, no, don't do that, I said quickly. That's not me. Okay, Heather said, and I heard her typing. Can you confirm the correct email? I gave it to her, and she updated it. She sounded genuinely sympathetic, like she'd seen this movie before and hated the ending. How much is the loan? I asked, bracing myself. It's $15,000. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, because my brain needed something to do besides scream. 15 grand, I repeated. That's ambitious. Heather didn't laugh. Mr. Carter, I'm very sorry. I'll send the packet right now. You'll also want to contact local law enforcement to file a report. Already on my schedule, I muttered. We ended the call, and I stood there in my quiet apartment with my cereal getting soggy and my whole life feeling like somebody had swapped it out overnight. My phone buzzed again, work calendar reminder. Team meeting in 30 minutes. Perfect. Madison and I had broken up about 5 weeks earlier. Not we cried and hugged and promised to be friends, broken up. More like a door shuts and the room gets colder, broken up. We'd been together a little over 2 years, living in Columbus, Ohio, in a mid-level apartment complex that tried to feel luxury because it had a grill area and a gym with 2 treadmills that always smelled like sadness. I worked in IT support for a logistics company. Nothing glamorous, but steady. Madison worked in marketing for a small local firm, the kind that sold brand vibes and charged people for fonts. On paper, we were normal. In real life, it was constant friction, money, priorities, the way she treated every inconvenience like a personal attack from the universe. The thing about Madison is she could turn anything into a crisis and still somehow be bored. That takes talent. One night near the end, I came home after a long day. One of those days where every printer in the building decides it's done with your attitude. I walked in, kicked off my shoes, and found Madison on the couch, scrolling on her phone with the intensity of someone defusing a bomb. Without looking up, she said, "We need to talk." That sentence has ended more peaceful evenings than hurricanes. You see my bay down. Okay. About what? She looked up, and her eyes did that thing where they were already annoyed at me, even though I hadn't spoken yet. This isn't working, she said. I blinked. What isn't? Us, she said like I was the slow kid in class. A normal person might lead into it. Madison went straight to the exit sign. Is this because I didn't go to your coworker's birthday thing? I asked. She scoffed. It's everything, Ethan. It's your energy. It's your priorities. You're always tired. You're always busy. Yeah, I said, because I work. That's usually what happens when someone works. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might request PTO. See? That attitude. My attitude? I repeated. You just said you want to break up, and I'm trying to understand why. I'm not happy, she said. Like that was a complete explanation. I need someone who matches my pace. Your pace. I gestured around our apartment. The half-folded laundry, the Amazon boxes, the sink full of dishes from her working late nights that somehow always included takeout. Your pace is ordering stuff you don't need and calling it self-care. She sat up straight, offended. Wow. Okay. So you're just going to insult me. I'm not insulting you, I said. I'm describing a pattern. She stood up, phone still in hand like it was an emotional support animal. You're impossible. You never support me. I supported you when your car needed repairs, I said. I covered rent when your bonus didn't show up. I helped you rewrite that resume when you hated your boss. Madison's face tightened. So you're keeping score? No, I said. I'm responding to you saying I never support you. That's literally what a response is. She grabbed her keys off the counter. I'm done. I can't do this. And that was that. She walked out, slammed the door, and within 48 hours, she'd moved her stuff out while I was at work. No goodbye. No closure. Just empty drawers and a missing set of my good towels. Honestly, at the time, I didn't even fall apart. I was hurt, sure, but there was also this weird sense of relief, like my apartment finally got quiet. My best friend Ray summed it up perfectly when I told him. We were sitting in his truck in the parking lot outside my building, because Ray's version of emotional support is, let's sit somewhere with snacks and complain. Ray looked at me and said, so what you're saying is, your house is peaceful now. Pretty much. He nodded like a therapist who charges by the hour. Good. Now you can finally breathe without someone telling you you're breathing wrong. That was Ray. The man could roast your pain and still make you feel better. Madison disappeared after the breakup. No texts. No, let's talk. No late-night regret messages. Just silence. And because she was the one who bailed, I figured she had moved on and I was a deleted file. Until the bank call. After Heather's email came through, I opened the forms on my laptop and felt my blood pressure climb with every paragraph. The loan had been opened online. The application had my full name, my social security number, my employer, my approximate income, and details like how long I'd lived at my address. Whoever did it didn't guess. They knew. The only people who knew that much about me were my family, my employer, and Madison, who had lived with me, watched me pay bills, and, this part haunted me, had access to my documents more times than I could count. I kept a folder in the desk drawer labeled adult life stuff. Taxes, car title, pay stubs, the kind of paperwork that makes you feel 40 even if you're not. Madison used to joke about it. One time she'd pulled out my social security card like it was a collectible baseball card and said, "Why do you keep this? This is like the golden ticket for being an American." I'd taken it back, laughing, because who thinks their girlfriend is going to use it like a cheat code? Apparently, the answer is me 1 month ago. I called Ray again. He picked up on the second ring. What's up? Remember how you said my apartment was peaceful now? Yeah. Turns out Madison left me a farewell gift. What kind? Ray asked, and I could hear him already preparing a sarcastic comment. A $15,000 loan in my name. There was a pause. Then, oh, yeah. Ray whistled low. That's not a gift. That's a whole cursed artifact. I'm not joking, man. I know, he said, voice shifting into something more serious. Okay, what do you need? I need to file a report. Bank said contact law enforcement. Good, Ray said. Do it today. Don't wait. People who do stuff like that count on you being confused and slow. Thanks, Sensei. Ray snorted. Also, I'm coming over after work. We're going to sit down, make a checklist, and you're not doing that thing where you pretend you're fine and then randomly deep clean your kitchen to avoid thinking. How do you know me so well? Because you're predictable, he said, like a dad on a Sunday with a lawn. I appreciated Ray more than I could explain in that moment. Before work, I drove to the police station downtown. Walking into a police station at 9 in the morning is a weird experience. It's like going to the DMV, but with more radios and less hope. A front desk officer looked up. "Can I help you?" "Yeah," I said. "I need to report identity theft." A loan was opened in my name. He nodded like he'd heard it 100 times. "Have a seat. An officer will be with you." I sat in a plastic chair next to a guy who looked like he was regretting every decision he'd made since 2007. A TV in the corner played local news with captions on, because the universe loves background irony. A few minutes later, a tall officer with a calm face stepped into the lobby and called my name. "Ethan Carter?" I stood. "That's me." He led me into a small interview room and introduced himself. "Officer Delgado, tell me what happened." So I told him, breakup, bank call, the loan. Delgado listened without interrupting, then asked, "Do you have any reason to believe someone specific did this?" I hesitated. Saying it out loud felt like crossing a line. But facts were facts. "My ex," I said. "She had access to my documents. She moved out fast after we split, and the contact info on the account isn't mine." Delgado nodded slowly. "Do you still have any share accounts? Phone plans? Email logins?" "No," I said. "At least, I don't think so." "Think," he said gently. I rubbed my forehead. "We had a shared streaming account. But that's just TV. Sometimes people reuse passwords," Delgado said. "If she knew any of your passwords, she might be able to get into your email." That sentence hit me like a brick, because Madison used to know everything. She'd helped set up my laptop once when it was running slow. She'd organized my files because she said my folder system was stressful. She'd sat next to me while I paid bills, casually looking at the screen like it was normal. Delgado slid a form across the table. "We'll take the report. You'll also want to contact the credit bureaus, place a fraud alert, and pull your credit report to see what else is there." "What if the bank says it's on me?" I asked. Delgado looked at me like I'd asked if the sky is blue. "They may push back at first. But if it wasn't you, document everything. Keep records of calls, emails, letters. Don't stop just because someone on the phone sounds confident." I nodded. "So basically, become my own full-time paperwork manager." He gave a small half-smile. "For a little while, yeah." When I left the station, I sat in my car for a minute with both hands on the steering wheel, just breathing like I was trying not to punch the dashboard. Anger wasn't even the right word. It was disbelief. Like, you date someone, you share a home, you split groceries, you argue about paint colors, and then they turn around and try to financially wreck you like it's a hobby. I drove to work with my mind racing. The meeting reminder buzzed again. My manager didn't know I was about to walk into the office as a man with an invisible $15,000 backpack. At work, I tried to act normal. That lasted about 12 minutes. My coworker Tanya caught me in the hallway near the break room. Tanya was the kind of person who could read your face like a headline. She held a coffee cup and squinted at me. "You look like you fought a vending machine and lost." "Feels about right," I said. She lowered her voice. "You okay?" A normal person might say, "Yeah, just tired." But I was running on adrenaline and spite, which is an incredibly honest combination. "My ex opened a loan in my name," I said. Tanya's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me. 15,000, I added like I was bragging. "What is wrong with people?" Tanya muttered. Then she pointed her coffee at me. "Okay, you need to call HR and ask what documentation you can get about your employment and pay. Banks love paperwork. I already got a report number this morning," I said. Tanya nodded, impressed. "Good. And change your passwords." "I'm doing that tonight." She leaned in, eyes sharp. "Also check your mailbox situation. If mail was going somewhere else, you need to know." That bothered me immediately, because Madison had always been weird about mail. Not dramatic, just overly interested. She'd grab it first. She'd sort it. She'd toss junk without asking. At the time, I thought she was being helpful. Now it felt like I'd been living with someone who treated my life like a filing cabinet. The rest of the workday was a blur of pretending to troubleshoot printer issues while privately imagining Madison sitting at her laptop, clicking I agree on a loan application with the calm confidence of someone ordering shoes. Ray came over after work, true to his word. He showed up with a bag of burgers and fries like food could patch financial trauma. He dropped the bag on the table. All right, let's go. What's step one? Step one, I said. I eat this burger like it's my last meal. Ray sat down and pulled out his phone. Okay. Step two, credit reports. Fraud alert. Password changes. And you're calling the bank back tomorrow to get the timeline and copies of everything. Already asked for that, I said. Ray nodded. Good. Now tell me, what's the most Madison way she could have done this? I leaned back and stared at the ceiling. She probably used my documents from the desk drawer. Ray chewed on a fry. Did she have a key after the breakup? She didn't give hers back, I admitted. Ray paused mid-chew. Ethan, I know. That's not oops. That's a problem. Yeah, I said. I'm changing the locks. Tonight, Ray said like he was my dad. We spent the evening going through everything like we were prepping for a hurricane. Passwords, two-factor authentication, email recovery options, bank logins, credit monitoring. Stuff I'd always told myself I'd handle eventually. At one point, Ray asked, any weird emails in the last month? I opened my inbox and searched for the bank's name. Nothing. Then I checked my trash folder. Still nothing. Then I checked email filters. And there it was, a filter created 3 weeks earlier that automatically sent any email with the bank's name straight to the trash. I stared at the screen. Ray stared too. He whistled. Oh, she came prepared. My voice came out quiet. She used my email, or she had access, Ray said. Either way, that filter didn't create itself. A cold, slow anger spread through me, because that meant Madison hadn't just taken my info. She'd intentionally blocked the warnings. She tried to keep me in the dark long enough for the payments to stack up, for the damage to become real. Ray leaned back. Okay, that's good news, actually. How is that good news? Because it's proof, he said. That's not an accident. That's someone actively hiding it. I nodded slowly. Right? Then Ray added, also, you need to stop calling her your ex like she's just some normal breakup story. This is a mess. You're doing great at comforting me. I deadpanned. Ray grinned. That's why I'm here. The next morning, I called the bank again. A different representative answered. This time a guy named Mark who sounded like he had a standing desk and opinions about it. Thank you for calling. How can I help? Yeah, I said. I got a call yesterday about a loan open in my name. I filed a police report. I need copies of the application and any verification details. Mark put me on hold for a minute. When he came back, his tone was more cautious. Okay, Mr. Carter, I see the notes. We can provide documents through our fraud department. I'll submit the request. Also, I said, what method was used for verification? Mark cleared his throat. The application passed knowledge-based questions, and the funding account matched the applicant's name. What funding account? I asked. It shows an external checking account. That's not mine, I said. I never linked anything. Mark hesitated. I can't provide the full account number over the phone. Fine, I said. But tell me this. Did the application include a scanned ID or a signature? Yes, Mark said. It included an upload of a driver's license. My chest tightened. A driver's license. Yes, Madison had a picture of my license. I knew that for a fact because she once took it out to fill in travel paperwork when we went out of state. She'd snapped a photo and said, just in case. Just in case, huh? Mark continued. The email on file was updated yesterday, per your request. Yeah, I said, because it wasn't mine. Understood, he said, voice stiff now, like he was trying not to say something legally messy. Fraud department will contact you within a few business days. A few days, I repeated. Meanwhile, you're telling me I owe money I didn't borrow. The account is currently under review, Mark said quickly. You won't be required to make payments while it's under investigation. That's comforting, I said. In the same way it's comforting when someone says don't worry right before a roller coaster drops. Mark did not laugh. After I hung up, I realized something. Madison didn't just have my information. She had access to my email long enough to create a filter. So how? That night, I checked my laptop for save passwords. I checked my browser history for logins I didn't recognize. Nothing obvious. Then I remembered something small, stupid, and incredibly expensive. A month before the breakup, my phone had broken, screen cracked, touch barely working. Madison insisted I use her old phone for a day while I waited for mine to get repaired. She handed it to me and said, "It's wiped, don't worry." I logged into my email on it, just to check messages, just to respond to work. Then I handed it back the next day without thinking. Ray's voice echoed in my head. People who do stuff like that count on you being confused and slow. Madison probably wasn't some criminal mastermind. She didn't need to be. She just needed one small opening and a willingness to cross lines most people don't even see. A few days later, the fraud department emailed me the application documents. It was surreal seeing my name typed out on a form that wasn't mine. The uploaded driver's license was a photo of my license taken at a slight angle, like someone had snapped it quickly. The employer info was accurate. The income was inflated, which actually offended me. Like, if you're going to ruin my finances, at least respect my salary. The phone number on the application was tied to a prepaid line, and the external checking account, where the funds went, was in my name, but it wasn't my bank. That part was the twist that made my skin crawl, because it meant she'd opened a new checking account in my name too, just to funnel the money. A whole pipeline. I stared at the documents at my kitchen table while Ray sat across from me, shaking his head. Ray tapped the paper. "This is a full-time hobby for her." "Yeah," I said. Apparently she had free time. Ray leaned forward. "Okay, here's the question. Does she still have access to your building?" My stomach dropped again. "She might." "Then we fix that today," he said. We went straight to the leasing office. The manager, a tired woman named Kelly, listened while I explained. Kelly blinked a few times and said, "So your ex has a key and you're saying she opened a loan in your name?" "Yes," I said. Kelly exhaled. "Okay, we're rekeying your lock today. There's a fee." Hier. Ray leaned in and said, very politely, "Kelly, he's reporting identity theft. If his key situation is compromised, that's not a fee situation. That's a safety and liability situation." Kelly stared back like Ray had spoken in legal terms without saying any banned words. A long pause. Then she nodded. "Okay, we'll do it today. No fee." Ray smiled. "Thank you." As we walked out, I muttered, "You were born to argue with customer service." Ray shrugged. "Some people play sports. I was built for call centers." About a week later, Madison texted me. "No apology. No explanation. Just, hey, can we talk?" My thumb hovered over the screen. Ray was on my couch, watching me like a referee. "Don't. I'm not," I said. Ray raised an eyebrow. I typed, "About what?" Madison replied fast. "I heard you're making a big deal out of something." I stared at the message, so hard it could have melted. "A big deal," I read out loud. Ray made a choking sound. "That is an Olympic-level lack of shame." I typed, "Bank called me. Loan my name. Documents show my license photo. Email filter was set to delete bank messages." Madison's reply took longer. "Then, you're being dramatic. I needed help. You would have helped if you weren't so selfish." Ray sat up. "Oh, I don't like her. I'm starting to pick up on that," I said, voice tight. I typed, "This isn't help. This is fraud." Madison replied, "Stop using scary words. It's not like anyone got hurt." That line did something to me. Not a breakdown. More like a switch flipping. Because it told me she didn't see me as a person with boundaries. She saw me as a tool she'd lost access to. I typed, "Do not contact me again. Communication goes through official channels." Madison said, "Wow, so you're really going to ruin my life over money?" I didn't respond. Ray exhaled slowly. "She thinks this is a breakup argument." "Yeah," I said, "and I'm done arguing." The next few weeks were paperwork, phone calls, and waiting. A lot of waiting. I go to work, fix other people's problems, come home, open my laptop, and do battle with forms. I started keeping a notebook of dates and names because every time I called someone, I got a new person with a new tone. One bank rep sounded sympathetic. Another sounded like I was personally inconveniencing him by being robbed. Tanya checked in on me almost daily. One afternoon, she rolled her chair over and said, "Any updates?" "Fraud department says they're investigating," I said. "They asked for the police report, which I gave them." They asked for a written statement, which I gave them. Now, they're investigating. Tanya nodded. Translation: you're in the waiting room of bureaucracy. Exactly. Tanya leaned closer. How are you holding up? I thought about it. Then I said, I'm fine, but also I'm becoming a person who reads credit bureau websites for fun. Tanya laughed. Welcome to adulthood. It's terrible. At home, I started noticing how much lighter everything felt without Madison. Not emotionally at first. Logistically, no one complaining about what I cooked. No one turning a grocery trip into a moral debate about brands and status. No one asking why I was always tired when I worked full-time. My place wasn't fancy, but it was calm. And calm turned out to be addictive. Ray came by one night while I was making spaghetti. He watched me stir sauce like I was hosting a cooking show. He said, "You realize you're more relaxed now than you've been in like a year." Yeah, I said. Apparently stress was my roommate. Ray pointed his fork at me. Don't go back. I'm not, I said. He nodded. Good. Then he added, also, you need to date someone who doesn't treat your social security number like a shopping coupon. Great advice, I said. I'll put that in my dating profile. 2 months after the initial bank call, the fraud department finally reached a decision. They called me, and I put on speaker with Ray sitting nearby like he was my emotional support witness. A woman named Denise spoke. Mr. Carter, thank you for your patience. We completed our investigation. We have determined that the loan was opened without your authorization. I exhaled so hard it felt like my lungs had been holding their breath since Tuesday cereal day. So, I said slowly, what happens now? Denise continued. We are closing the account and removing any negative reporting associated with it. You will not be responsible for repayment. We will also provide documentation confirming the resolution. I leaned back in my chair, eyes closing for a second. Thank you. Denise's voice softened. I'm sorry you went through this. When the call ended, Ray threw his hands up like his team just won the World Series. Yes, he shouted. Okay. Now we celebrate responsibly, which means you're eating ice cream and going to bed at a normal time. I laughed, the first real laugh I'd had in weeks. But it wasn't fully over, because the bank had resolved my part, but the bigger truth was still sitting in my life like an unpaid parking ticket. Madison did it. And Madison, in her mind, was still the main character. She texted me again a few days after the decision, probably because she realized the money pipeline was collapsing. Ethan, please, we need to talk. I didn't think it would get this serious. I stared at the message. Ray looked over. Don't. I'm not, I said, but my fingers were already typing. Not to argue, not to threaten, just to be clear. I typed, it was serious when you did it. Madison replied, you don't understand what I was dealing with. I was stressed. I was trying to keep everything together. I wrote, you had options that didn't involve my identity. Madison, you're acting like I'm a monster. I stared at that line and almost laughed again, but this time it would have been the dark kind. So I typed the final message I ever sent her. I'm acting like someone who learned. Don't contact me again. Then I blocked her. Not out of cruelty, out of survival. Because the weirdest part of all this wasn't the loan. It was realizing how easy it is to let someone close enough to reach into your life, and how hard it is to pull them out once they've decided your boundaries are optional. Months passed. The practical parts of my life got better first. I paid my bills without feeling like I was financing someone else's moods. I started sleeping better. Not perfect, but better. I stopped checking my phone like it was going to ambush me. Work improved because I wasn't mentally carrying relationship drama into every meeting. I got offered a small promotion, more responsibility, a bit more money. Nothing movie-worthy, just progress. Ray congratulated me by saying, look at you, becoming a functioning adult. I hate it. Tanya brought cupcakes and said, this is proof your life improves when chaos leaves your zip code. One Saturday morning, I was at the grocery store pushing a cart down the cereal aisle, the same aisle where my life had shifted when I heard someone say my name. Ethan. I turned and saw Madison. She looked different, not in a glow-up way, more like someone who'd been living with consequences and didn't like the decor. Her hair was pulled back, face tense, eyes too alert. She wasn't holding a cart, just standing there like she'd been waiting. My first instinct was to walk away, but she stepped closer and said, Please. Just a minute. I kept my distance. What? Madison swallowed. I messed up. Silence stretched between us, filled with the hum of fluorescent lights and a kid somewhere begging for cookies. Madison's voice wobbled, but she tried to keep it controlled. I didn't think it would blow up like this. Hier. That's the part that scares me. She frowned. What do you mean? You didn't think it would blow up, I repeated. So you thought it would just sit on me. You thought I'd pay it or something. Madison's eyes flicked away. I thought you would help. I let out a short breath through my nose. You mean you thought you could force help? Stop, she snapped, then softened immediately. I am sorry. I'm dealing with a lot. What are you dealing with? I asked, calm. She hesitated. I can't get approved for an apartment right now. My credit got flagged. My job found out something. It's complicated. I nodded. Yeah, it usually is when you do complicated things. Madison looked at me like she expected pity, like I'd step in and rescue her from the consequences of her own choices. And there it was, the same dynamic, just wearing a different outfit. She said quietly, I miss you. That almost got me. Not because I missed her, but because it was such a familiar tactic. Pull the emotional lever when logic stops working. So I kept my voice steady. You miss what I did for you. Madison's eyes narrowed. That's not fair. It's accurate, I said. If you missed me, you wouldn't have used my information like that. Madison's face tightened again. I was desperate. You were bold, I corrected. There's a difference. She looked down at her hands, then back up. So that's it. You're just going to hate me forever. I don't hate you, I said. And I meant it. Hate takes energy. I had better things to spend mine on. I just don't trust you. And I'm not building a life with someone I can't trust. Madison's eyes got glossy, but she blinked hard like she refused to let it show. I didn't realize what I had. That line, finally, the lesson, landed in the air like a confession. I nodded once. Now you do. She stepped closer. Can we at least talk sometime? Like really talk? No, I said, and my voice didn't shake. We already did. For 2 years. Madison stood there, lips pressed tight, like she was trying to find a new angle. But there wasn't one. So she said, small and bitter, you think you're better than me now. I almost smiled. No, I think I'm better without you. That wasn't said to be cruel. It was just the truth. Madison stared at me for a long second, then turned and walked away. No dramatic scene. No shouting. Just a quiet retreat down aisle 6 like the world had finally stopped making room for her. I stood there for a moment, hand on the cart, heart steady. Then I grabbed my cereal, because life doesn't stop for anyone's regrets. On the drive home, the quiet in my car felt different than it used to. Not lonely. Clean. At a red light, Ray called me. Joe, quick question. You alive? Yeah, I said. Why? Just checking, he said. You've been quiet today. I ran into Madison. There was a pause. Then Ray said, very carefully, okay. And she tried to talk, I said. Try to do the whole I didn't realize thing. Ray exhaled. Ah, the classic. Yeah, I said. But I didn't fold. Ray's voice warmed. Good. Then he added, proud of you, man. I rolled my eyes even though he couldn't see it. Don't get emotional. You'll ruin your reputation. Ray laughed. Listen, you earned it. You got hit with a mess, you handled it, and you didn't crawl back to the person who caused it. Yeah, I said, pulling into my parking spot. Turns out I can learn. Ray snorted. Look at that. Growth. When I hung up, I carried groceries upstairs to my apartment, unlocked my new lock, and stepped into a space that finally felt like mine. No tension in the air. No silent scoreboard of who owed who. No feeling like I had to shrink myself to keep someone else comfortable. Just quiet. And the faint smell of spaghetti from the night before. If there's a moral here, because people always want a moral, it's not some poetic thing about fate or destiny. It's simpler. Trust is not a cute vibe. It's a foundation. And if someone treats your life like something they can borrow against, they're not your partner. They're a risk. Madison learned that the hard way. And me? I learned that peace is expensive, but it's worth every penny, especially when you're the one protecting it.